be a bit difficult. Thank you.
Well, it is 6 o'clock. So we'll call this regular meeting for the Fundy Albert Council to order for October 1st, 2024. I'd like to note that we are at the Southeast New Brunswick Snowmobile Association Club on Caledonia Mountain Road this evening, and our entire council meeting will be audio and video recorded as usual. So I will call the meeting to order. That's been done. So the next order of business is the adoption of the agenda. The agenda for this evening's meeting was circulated in advance. I propose the addition of item number 12, which is a usual addition of public comments and statements. This would make the closed session item number 13 and the adjournment item number 14. Do all councillors consent to the proposed addition of the item to the agenda?
Yes.
There being unanimous consent, all being in favor, I'll accept a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. So moved by Councillor Jonah, seconded by Councillor Coates. Any discussion on the motion? Not. All in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? The motion's adopted unanimously. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare in relation to the items on the agenda this evening?
12A.
We have Councillor Land, who is declaring a conflict on the closed session item, which is 12A. Thank you. We'll now move on to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the adoption of the minutes. There are 6 sets of minutes to approve this evening. Those of 2 special meetings on August 13th, 2024, the regular meeting of council on September 3rd, 2024, the committee of the whole meeting on September 17th, 2024, a special meeting on September 18th, 2024, and a special meeting on September 25th, 2024. For the minutes on August 13th, 24, the one that has motions, the minutes of the special meeting on August 13th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. were approved at the September 3rd regular meeting. They contained an error on the time that was noted on the minutes, and so these need to be rescinded with the corrected minutes approved. I require a motion to rescind the incorrect version of the minutes. I need a motion, please. So moved by Councillor Ward Russell, seconded by Councillor Land. Any discussion on the motion? And again, it was the wrong time that were noted in the minutes, so these have to be rescinded and the corrected version approved. Any questions on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion to rescind the previous minutes indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? The motion is carried. The corrected version of the minutes were circulated. Are there any errors or omissions to report? If not, I'll accept a motion to adopt the corrected version of the minutes for August 13th, 2024 as circulated. So moved by Councillor Land, seconded by Councillor Jonah. Any discussion on the motion? Not, all in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. The second set of minutes are also from August 13th, 2024. It was a special meeting, a closed session. The minutes of the second special meeting held on August 13th, 2024 have been circulated. Are there any errors or omissions to report? They're not hearing any. I will ask for a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated. So moved by Councillor Coates, seconded by Councillor Ward Russell. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? The motion's carried. The next set of minutes are the regular meeting on September 3rd, 2024. The draft minutes of the regular meeting on September 3rd, 2024 were circulated in advance of this meeting. Are there any errors or omissions to report? Not hearing any, I'll accept a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated. So moved by Councillor Ward Russell, seconded by Councillor Jonah. Any discussion on the motion? Not, all in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's adopted unanimously. The next set of minutes is the minutes for the committee of the whole meeting on September 17th, 2024. The draft minutes were circulated in advance of the meeting. Are there any errors or omissions to report in those minutes? There not being any, I'll accept a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated. So moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Coates. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? The motion's carried. Next set of minutes are the special meeting of September 18th, 2024. The draft minutes of the special meeting were circulated in advance of the meeting. Are there any errors or omissions to report? Not hearing any, I'll accept a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated. So moved by Councillor Jonah, seconded by Councillor Ward Russell. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? The motion's carried unanimously. The next minutes are the special meeting of September 25th, 2024. The draft minutes were circulated in advance of the meeting. Are there any errors or omissions to report? Not hearing any, I'll accept a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated. So moved by Deputy Mayor Arrow, seconded by Councillor Ward Russell. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? The motion's carried unanimously. Item number 5 on this evening's agenda is the consent agenda. There are no consent agenda items for this evening's meeting. We move on to item number 6, which is public and administrative presentations. We have 2 5-minute presentations registered for this evening and 1 2-minute presentation. So I will now call on Miss Susan McCallum on the topic of Alma Village Square Perennial Gardens and Alma Committee. Mrs. McCallum, if you'd like to come up, you can actually sit in the chair or you can stand by the chair. Unfortunately, we deal with what we have. So thank you for attending.
Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation to council on this very important topic. Knowledge and quality accurate information are very important tools that you as a decision-making body with fiduciary responsibilities depend on to help guide your actions. I think there are some knowledge gaps when it comes to the gardens in Alma, so I'd like to fill those in. Let's start with the history of how we got to where we are today. The former Village of Alma Council created the Alma Committee in the fall of 2021. Its mandate was to consider and make recommendations to council on the following matters: village beautification, investigation of funding opportunities, village festivals and events, and other items and issues relevant to those purposes. The committee had 10 members, all residing between Alma and Lower Coverdale. And the committee conducted a short resident survey to help guide their work. And the #1 priority, according to residents, was village beautification. Council's 2022 general operating budget included a boost to its village beautification budget from $15,000 to $20,000, and the Alma Committee pursued quotes and drawings for landscaping plans. There was a sincere desire to show respect for and honor the wishes of the council by pursuing beautification with pollinators that would support the Friends of Fundy and Fundy National Park Pollinator Trail Initiative. The committee requested quotes from 8 different nurseries, and the contract was awarded to Bob Osborne of Cornhill Nursery. Bob visited the village and provided drawings and pricing for the village square, the area in front of Outpost Alma, the area underneath the general store sign, and the areas in front of the Alma Activity Center and Cleveland Place, as well as the gardens that have been replaced with concrete in front of the Holy Whale on Main Street. At about the same time, there was an opportunity to apply for federal funding through Rob Moore's office under the Celebrate and Commemorate program. This fund was intended to help restart local economies after they were ravaged by COVID-19. To be clear, this was not gas tax or CCBF money. It was a one-time federal grant, and the village submitted an application and received just over $60,000. Over $20,000 of that money was allocated to village beautification to complete the work designed by Bob Osborne. The plantings were completed in the summer of 2022. Mayor Rochon, you made a comment at a council meeting this past spring about how thought needs to be given to maintenance when things like this are created, and you're absolutely right. And I can assure you that there was a maintenance plan in place at the time. The volunteer gardeners were training Alma's public works staff about the plants and how and what to weed, and things were proceeding quite well. Also, please do not forget that at this point in time, 2022, New Brunswick municipalities were told by the province that amalgamation would be phased in over a 4-year period. This would have been plenty of time for new perennial beds to become well established so that Alma could enter amalgamation with beautiful gardens. We could not have foreseen that maintenance would become a problem because the former village of Alma was promised on more than one occasion by Mike Cullen and Chad Peters that Alma would continue to have a full-time public works staff person post-amalgamation. Unfortunately, momentum was lost in the transition. Maintenance did become a problem and the weeds gained the upper hand. When we learned this spring that the gardens were going to be removed, there were many reasons for our strong reaction. First and foremost, there was no consultation or information gathering from involved individuals prior to the decision being taken. And secondly, taxpayers' money, regardless of the source or level of government, really should not be wasted. As a former councillor myself, I do understand the sensitivities around noses in and fingers out that this council has to date, and I think rightly so, been very involved in decisions about village assets. I hope you give the entity's public spaces and gardens some serious thought as you work on hammering out the 2025 budget. So what are we after? We would like all the items that we got in an email from CAO Linda earlier this year to be completed as soon as possible, or a commitment made to set up a reserve so they can be completed in 2025. We would also like a commitment that there will be enough money allocated in the 2025 budget for public works support or a maintenance contract, replacement of the plantings that have been lost from, we would say, overly zealous weed whacking, a layer of landscape fabric and more tailings, or replace the tailings with grass to relieve the need to weed the tailings, proper edging, and interface education with public works staff. Beautification is important for all of Fundy Albert, and we hope council will allocate money in the 2025 budget to continue beautification throughout the entity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Right on time.
Oh, good.
I think you had like 16 seconds left, so it was really good. So
16, just to thank my fellow leaders.
absolutely.
Some of your staff have seen out there, you've seen fit in the gardens on more than one occasion. All the United Way, Day of Caring people have really done and sturdy. We appreciate it.
Thank you. So your time report does not account for any questions from council. So Deputy Mayor Arrow, any questions?
I don't have any questions. I'm, as you know, I'm a big supporter of the work that all of you are doing in Alma and maintaining and enhancing all of our beautification elements. I think it's important for all of us in Fundy Albert that we take it seriously. I noticed in the most recent Albert County Tourism Association open letter to the candidates for the province that they underline the importance of beautification throughout. So your message to me is important, and we need to take it seriously. And the budget deliberations are upon us, and we have our new director here tonight hearing, and so we've got the people that we need, and thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Ward Russell.
No, thank you very much for your presentation. I greatly appreciated the beginning information packs. It's something I wasn't aware of, so it's good to understand, exactly where all that came from. And like Deputy Mayor Arrow just expressed, as we get ourselves involved in the budget in the coming weeks, it's good to have this information as we lead ourselves into that.
Thank you. Councillor Coates.
No questions, but thank you for your presentation. It was well thought.
Thank you. Councillor Land.
Thank you, Ms. McCollum, for your presentation. The information I didn't know about the past 28,000 or 60,000, I didn't know all that information. It's nice to know the background going forward. Beautification is what we're supposed to be all about in Fundy Albert. That's what brings all these tourists and spends money. So, yeah, no, I'm supportive of keeping the place down, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Drona.
I can just echo what everybody else says. I really appreciate the backstory though. Never heard it before, no idea. It's important information to have to move forward. So thank you for your time and for everything that you guys are doing down there. Appreciate it.
And for my part, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for all the hard work that the volunteers in the community of Alma have put towards the beautification in the community. There are efforts going on pretty much everywhere in the community, including Riverside, Albert. Your comments are your comments have been heard. The people who, as someone has pointed out, the people who are here that should hear that have listened. The councillors have listened. And as Deputy Mayor Arrow pointed out, we're about to get into budget deliberations. So those types of decisions in terms of allocation and the impact on tax rates will be weighing heavily on everyone's mind. So, and my hope is that we'll have ample opportunity to consult with the public in terms of what's in the budget and so on and see what the implications are. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Our next presenter is Micah Fardy on the Outpost Alma Pollinator Garden and the 2024-2025 Pollinator Trail. So welcome,
Rather boring for you all.
welcome Micah.
Sorry about that. I should have known the setup of the place, but thank you, Mayor Rashad, Council, for the opportunity to come and meet with you again. Friends of Fundy always appreciates being able to update and share some of the stuff that's going on. So I have the first slide up. That's just the logo from Community Pollinator Gardens to Fundy Albert Pollinator Trail. The next slide. In 2018, Fundy National Park and Friends of Fundy partnered to expand on Fundy National Park's 3,600 square foot pollinator garden. It's because Fundy National Park in Parks Canada across the country is in a Tier 3 monarch travel zone. So they were able to apply for certain funds. So we partnered together so we could help share that information throughout the communities that surround Fundy National Park, because pollinators, male abandoned bumblebees, are not aware of the park boundaries. So in 2019, we took those funds, we applied for Environmental Trust Fund, and we started the Fundy Pollinator Trail. So the images that you see in the top right-hand corner, we had, and actually the whole bit, we had groups of volunteers from United Way Day of Caring. They partnered with the United Way Day of Caring, Farmer Brown's, the Foods of the Fundy Valley, at this first round, and a number of other, I should actually look at my Albert County Museum and Cape and Rage and Riverside Albert. And we had groups plant pollinator gardens, small little micro pollinator gardens all around the 114. The interesting part is Fundy National Park does not have native milkweed in park boundaries. So we can plant native milkweed. So in each of these micro gardens, we planted milkweed for the pollinators. That's what they need. In Alma, because there was a lot of changes that were happening in terms of the building of what's now the Alma Cultural Center, and there wasn't really enough time to get agreement on where to put a garden. We partnered with the businesses and we did little pollinator pots, and our students put up little bits of information. Each of the businesses bought a pot. So there was some beautification in Alma. And we also did a series of community workshops, lots of giveaways and information on great stuff that can be done with pollinators. We developed a brochure, and we also started an iNaturalist app. So the next slide, Outpost Alma Garden 2020, looks very different than today. We didn't participate in a Day of Caring that year, and the building was just finishing up. It just opened in July 1st, and that's when we moved in Outpost Alma with an awesome arrangement with the village of Alma. There wasn't a lot of businesses renting space that season. The next slide, Outpost Alma Garden 2020. Oh, that shouldn't say 20. Does that say 2020? No, 2021. There was a vision. So as you can see, there's no flowers yet, but they had a cement circle and we kind of plotted down where we would put flowers. We again got Environmental Trust Fund, and we partnered with United Way Day of Caring. The next slide shows it a year in advance, 2022. We're seeing progress, takes some time. And you can all see these on your computer, right? I'm not just forget. And then in 2023, we did the back spot, and we had another round of community volunteers from United Way Day of Caring and did some care with the gardens in front of that. Meanwhile, each of these times there's been small advancements depending on what community organizations were able to do different work on those smaller micro gardens coming all the way up to 114. A great example is the museum. They sometimes have volunteers come in, but if you've seen their gardens, the pollinators are all there, and it's quite a luscious. They really invested in building that out. The second to last or third to last slide is this year's 2024 Day of Caring. It took a few years, but it's finally come into its own with the garden. And then finally, it's just an overview of what the garden was like this summer. So just a snapshot to show it does take some time, but with community partnerships and being able to leverage outside funding to bring in, we can actually make some really great progress on beautification. And that is just one area along the 114. And we believe there's a lot of promise to build up on the great work that's taking place. So on the second to last slide, from 2019 to 2024, over 80 corporate volunteers from outside of the municipality, they're primarily Medavie Blue Cross and Irving volunteers, have been participating with the gardens. We do know, because we ask them every time, how familiar they are with the area, and most have only been to Fundy National Park and Hopewell Rocks, and this is a really great opportunity for them to get to know the surrounding community of Fundy Albert. Approximately 25 local community volunteers coming back each year and building. Over 11 community partnerships. So those are nonprofit organizations within the municipality. Significantly over $50,000 has been leveraged. So those are dollars outside of municipal funds through the Environmental Trust Fund, the United Way Southeastern New Brunswick, Friends of Fundy, and Fundy National Park, because they contributed in that first year in 2019. And in addition to the beautification and the enjoyment for residents and visitors, the gardens have received local, regional, and national attention. Destination Canada has focused, and we have pictures of the garden that they have now in their stock photo bit that they can share. We had National Geographic. It was that same day that you participated in the Atlantic UNESCO tourism piece. So they have captured images of the garden and certainly of the province of New Brunswick. And just this summer, there was somebody called into Information Morning in St. John and said, you got to check out the gardens that are around Fundy National Park.
I'll have to ask you to wrap up because
Awesome.
we've gone over, but.
Oh, sorry.
Flexible, given that we didn't have a screen for you.
Thank you. Basically, the earned media on this value is priceless. That's what people are hearing about Fundy Albert and the region. We are going to apply again. The application goes in November 2024. Really, our ask is from the village, we want to build on the Friendly by Nature, the brand and the identity that is becoming stronger and stronger. We are aligning with the regional destination development and stewardship strategy and leveraging the UNESCO designation because this is a part of their goals. We would just love, we're going to reapply for a Fundy Pollinator Trail. We'd ask, we'll work with Linda and her staff around a letter of support. And throughout this time, particularly over the past few years, the village has certainly provided the mulch, and the ops team on the ground, the public works team, has been awesome on the day and making sure the volunteers have a great time. And you've always been great in offering space when we do workshops.
Thank you. Thank you. Deputy Mayor, or any questions?
No, I'd just like to reiterate that my impression is that all of our gardens and beautiful areas that are being actively maintained throughout Fundy Albert are good for our people. I think our people enjoy them. And it's good for the visitors. It's clear when you see visitors sitting and enjoying these spaces throughout the municipality that they remember this and that the word gets out. And in twice this year, I visited similar kinds of communities in the Maritimes. One was Annapolis Royal in Nova Scotia, and the other was St. Andrews in New Brunswick. And both of those are prime destinations for tourists and also for people who live there, clearly taking pride in their communities. And gardens are even more prominent in those communities than they are here. And so I think that this is the right direction for us.
The work that CCRC has been doing with the 14 and the 915.
Yes, I think this is,
That's been
we
developed
need
really
to,
lovely.
I think it's even more important than maybe we think it is to our community.
Thank you. Councilor Ward Russell.
No, thank you for your presentation. I don't think I have really anything else, but just, thank you for the work that you continue to do. And beautification is important, so it doesn't matter where it is, it's always it's important to have.
Q. Councilor Coates.
Thank you, Becca. Known you quite a while, when you were at Riverview and everything you've been involved in has been a great success. And I hope you keep it up. Thank you.
Councilor Land.
Thank you for your presentation, and I do appreciate the work you put into local areas. It is very important to have things looking very pristine when people come. Like John says, people do sit and enjoy that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Jonah.
Thank you for your presentation. We're very fortunate to have you, down working on our behalf and on a number of things that you have your fingers in. I just want to personally thank you for everything you do, Micah. You're a real treasure to our community.
I'm very fortunate to live there.
Thank you. Well, from my perspective, I mean, I know Micah and her group, Friends of Fundy, very well, and I'm involved on a working group with them as well. And I agree that we need to do a lot more in terms of beautification, pollinator gardens and the like. What I would like to see is look at opportunities to maybe expand that a little bit and to show the beautification, not just in Alma and Riverside, Albert and points in between, but all the way towards 6. I mean, it makes it a little more complicated because there are no real community-owned assets, but it's not to say that it's impossible. We could work with community groups
Absolutely.
to
Absolutely.
do those things, whether it's the sign at the front of the Greensboro subdivision or, as long as we have an openness to doing those kind of things, I think there is an opportunity for us to benefit the entire community of Fundy Albert. And
Really, even if you're aware of groups, so definitely be so much in your area as well. We would love to meet them. Sometimes we're just not in the same, right? We don't want in that pumping space. So absolutely. That's where really there's so many great assets and stuff on the ground.
great. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. So now we do have a registered or a non-registered, but a registered at the time of the meeting, 2-minute presentation by Mrs. Ann Elliott. And the topic is on zoning and any wrong immigration. Am I correct by saying that, Mrs.
Yeah,
Elliott?
I guess.
If you'd like to stand or come over here and sit down and do your presentation. Unfortunately, as I said, I am going to have to limit it to 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll have to try and cut out some while we.
Sure.
I thank you for the opportunity to present this. And it's nice to see the council and the mayor. It's all, I love Albert County. I just want I just want the best choices for this. I call it Albert County, Fundy Albert. I don't know if it takes all Albert County. I am concerned about the federal government. I have heard it on the news. I watch a lot of news that the American government's allowing over 21 million illegal immigrants, many terrorists, murderers, and so on. And then they made an agreement with Mr. Trudeau to fly them over to Canada and bus them over. So my concern is that our representatives will ensure that we are protected from, and there's a lot of violence going on with those people that come in. This is not even here, but in that form. I'd like to see our country protected and not just Camp Alma, but our nation. I felt that I've been threatened a little bit in the past from the former council. I don't have time to go into it. I've no objections for that right away to bring the new water line connected to the old one. We're just going to agree on whatever is going to be needed. I do want to thank you guys before I run out of time. I appreciate it. Another matter important to me is I ask your help. The people of Alma, and I trust it's all of Albert County, I don't know their issues, were self-sufficient and they own their own wells or springs or water supply. And we had our own sewers. And I see how the people in Alma, the private homeowners, have suffered with the financial loss and so on by the, I assume it was the Alma Council, the mayors, of putting in village water and sewer and forcing everybody to use it. So what I'm asking of you is that you would permit private homeowners to choose, so they want to use their own well and their own sewer. It seems like a simple thing to me.
Mrs. Elliott, you pretty much were out of time a
Okay.
little while ago, so.
Thank you.
All right, well, just a minute. We'll just go around the table to see if anybody has any comments in relation to your brief presentation. Deputy
Just on
Mayor.
the last point, Ms. Elliott, on the water and sewer,
Yes.
I can tell you that there is a committee
Yes.
of the community that's under the council, an ad hoc committee that is looking at the consolidation of the water and sewer bylaws for all of Fundy Albert. And that subject is part of that investigation and deliberation. So what will come of that is too early to know.
Yeah.
But your views and have been noted by others already. So we'll see where that goes.
Thank you.
All right.
I know people have had to leave their home because they couldn't afford the sewer water imposed on them when they had their own supply and so on.
Okay.
And I don't know what the taxes.
Thank you. Councillor Ward Russell, any questions or?
No, I thank you for your presentation and your comments tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Coates.
No, the same thing. Thank you for your presentation and, hope to see you in a 5-minute
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Coates. Councillor Land.
Thank you for your presentation. Water is something that we take for granted. It is very important to all of us, and we need to be focused on that going into the future, going forward. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Councillor Jonah.
Thank you for your presentation. I see by your notes, you probably could have used the 5 minutes. So I urge you to maybe register for our next council meeting and do your whole presentation so we can hear everything you have to say, not a quick edited version of it.
Yeah. How do I register in advance?
So when you did come into the office was the way to do it, but you were just too quick, it was too soon for this meeting. It needs to be 7 days in advance. So I was going to contact you to put you on the agenda for the next meeting. So that's, I can still do that. I'll reach out to you after.
Thank you. I may not even be here, but I'd like to, if I have that particular time.
Okay.
Sure. All right.
I probably won't, but if I did.
And I'd like to thank you for coming in here this evening, Mrs. Elliott. Thank you for your comments as far as any risk to the public is concerned. Public security is very important to us all as council members. And that's why we have a contract with the police department. We have a very close working relationship with the provincial and federal governments. So it is something that it is near and dear to all of our council's heart. So we thank you for your comments. And if you do register for a 5-minute presentation, I look forward to hearing what you have to say. All right. Thank you. So that is all for public and administrative presentations. So we'll move on now to reports and recommendations from committees and private meetings. So from the committee of the whole meeting on September 17th, there should be a motion related to the Royal Canadian Legion Community Grant Request. A council report form was provided to council members outlining an in-kind contribution request, and it does require a resolution because of the nature of the request.
I could read that.
Yes, Council Land.
Whereas the local region has been the cornerstone of our community, providing invaluable support to veterans and their families. Whereas the Legion has requested assistance from the Fundy Albert Public Works Department to maintain and improve the Hillsborough Cenotaph. Whereas the Public Works Department has the capacity to provide in the requested services without significantly impacting their ongoing projects and budget. Therefore, be resolved that the Fundy Albert Council therefore hereby grants an in-kind donation of services from the Public Works Department to the local Legion, including but not limited to ground maintenance, removing 2 dead trees, branch trimmings, and digging holes for 2 flagpoles. Be it further resolved that the Public Works Department will coordinate with the Legion to schedule and prioritize these services in a manner that supports both the Legion's needs and the department's operational requirements.
So moved by Councilor Land. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councilor Jonah. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. The next item is a motion related to enforcement of dangerous and unsightly premises bylaw. The council report form was provided in relation to proceeding with enforcement efforts by Maritime Enforcement Services. It does require a resolution of council. Oh, yes, Councillor Ward Russell.
Whereas the current bylaw procedures for addressing unsightly premises requires an additional steps in the event of non-compliance where properties are deemed to be in significant violation of property standards, including but not limited to excessive garbage, overgrown vegetation, and structural disrepair. Whereas the maintenance of the property standards is essential for the health, safety, and aesthetic value of our community, be it resolved the Fundy Albert Council hereby authorizes the Chief Administrative Officer to instruct Maritime Enforcement to proceed with a Form 4 for PID number 006229985 in accordance with the acceptable municipal bylaws and regulations. Be it further resolved that the Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to execute all necessary documents to completion of the case and to affix the incorporate seal thereto.
So moved by Councillor Ward Russell. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Coates. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, just so that everyone is clear, it's to move forward on the issuance of a Form 4. It's a procedural step, but the requirement for Maritime Enforcement Services, they want to ensure that they have our backing when they go to issue that Form 4 and any steps pursuant to that. So, all in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any. Motion's carried unanimously. Then we'll now move on to other issues, which is Emergency Measures Committee report. Is there anything to report from the Emergency Measures Committee, Councillor Coates?
Nothing too new. There is a motion coming up a little later on in the schedule or agenda, so I'll leave it to that.
Thank you. Anything from the Personnel Committee?
Nothing tonight.
Nothing this evening. Anything from the Water and Wastewater Bylaw Consolidation Committee, Deputy Mayor?
The only update for that is the recent scheduled meeting at the end of September was canceled. Instead, we did have a conversation, informal conversation among council, and the administration has agreed to assist the committee in helping with a review of the draft bylaw that has been prepared and also a draft proposed rate structure. So we just want to make sure that these drafts are workable within our system. And so I, as the chair of that committee, will be forwarding the draft bylaw and the latest version of the draft billing structure to administration for their input. And we will be scheduling the next committee meeting in due course.
Thank you very much. So moving on to item number 8, reports from administration. The first one is 8A, which is a motion on the Fundy Albert Rural Plan. At the September 3rd regular meeting, a motion introduced by Councillor Elverton was tabled by council pending an amendment by Deputy Mayor Arrow. In order to address this matter, I require a motion to take back from the table the motion related to the Fundy Albert Rural Plan tabled on September 3rd. Can I have a motion to take that back from the table? So moved by Deputy Mayor Arrow. Can I have a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Jonah. Any discussion on the motion to take back from the table the tabled Fundy Albert Rural Plan, the proposed? There's no discussion. All in favor of the motion to take back from the table signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. So now that the matter is back in this council's hands, and there were really only two ways to proceed with this, and one would have required Councillor Eldrick's presence, but she's not here. So the only path forward, if council wishes to amend this motion, is for a member to offer an amendment. Deputy Mayor Arrow, I believe, has indicated that he is wishing to do so. So Deputy Mayor, the floor is yours.
Yes, so this is a little bit complicated, but you have the draft motion in front of you, and there's a procedural process that I'm going to work right here. So I move that the motion be amended as follows. In the first paragraph, insert the word no after the word bylaw, followed by inserting the word titled, number. I need to start again. Pardon me. In the first paragraph, insert the word NO period to indicate number, the bylaw, followed by inserting the word titled after 2024-7, followed by removing the word former and replacing it with the word existing, followed by inserting the words that falls within Fundy Albert after the word area. In the second paragraph, insert the acronym SERC for Southeast Regional Service Commission after the words referred to the, followed by inserting the acronym PRAC, following the words Planning, Review, and Adjustment Committee, followed by inserting the words subsequently before the words a public hearing, removing the third paragraph and replacing it with whereas many comments were received concerning the rural plan, Council is now considering changes to the proposed Fundy Albert Rural Plan in order to address the comments and concerns brought forward by members of the community during the public consultation process. Removing the fourth, fifth, and sixth paragraphs and adding a fourth paragraph as follows. Be it resolved, 1, that the Council of Fundy Albert shall form an ad hoc committee comprised of elected members of council and constituents representing the 4 existing rural plan bylaw areas to consider comments and concerns brought forward during the public hearing process and subsequent correspondence received, and to recommend changes, if any, to the proposed Fundy Albert Rural Plan, provided the recommended changes respect the intent of the consolidation process, which is to minimize fundamental changes to the existing rural plans, and 2, the council review the committee's recommendations and under the direction of Plan 360, make further adjustments to the proposed rural plan as it sees fit, and 3, in accordance with the provisions prescribed in the Community Planning Act, the council then refers the revised proposed rural plan to the SERSC PRAC for its written views, and 4, following receipt of the PRAC's views, that a second public hearing be scheduled to hear any comments for or against the revised proposed rural plan.
So moved by Deputy Mayor Arrow. Thank you very much. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Ward Russell. Any discussion on the motion? So now's the opportunity to speak before we call for the question.
Yes, so I would just speak.
Yes,
So
Deputy Mayor.
all we're just trying to do is tidy up the wording of the original motion there, with the intent really being very straightforward, is that we would create an ad hoc committee of council, which would include members of council. A chair would come from council. The terms of reference are essentially buried in here. For that, it would include constituents from the community to address many of the things that we heard, to basically try to make a second version of the rural plan, just essentially to address the concerns that have been raised. When it comes back, Plan 360 is involved in this process by, essentially it's required, even in the Community Planning Act, they lead the development of the text. And that's where it's noted in item number 2 of be it resolved. So item number 1 is just to create the committee. Item 2 is Plan 360 will actually lead the development of the draft revised text. 3, we would, once we, as the council, believed it was ready to go to the PRAC, it would go to the PRAC, which is a step in the Community Planning Act. And finally, once we receive their written views, it would go back to a public hearing. So it's basically just repeating the cycle that we already did once with the addition of the creation of a council to help, committee to help guide.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions or comments before we call for the vote? Yes, yes, Council Land.
Who do you propose sits on the ad hoc committee, John?
I'm not proposing that at this point.
Okay.
You're not there.
I'm going to cover that up.
Other than it would indicate here that it would be a broad representation to include a constituent, at least one from each of the 4 planning areas. So that's Alma, Riverside, Albert, Hillsborough, and then the LSD areas that are covered by the Westmoreland Albert Rural Plan.
Okay. Any other comments or questions before we call on the vote? So the vote is on the amendment only as presented by Deputy Mayor Arrow, and I will reread it just so that we're clear on what you're voting on. So it's an amendment to the bylaw which would insert the word NO period, which is for number after the word bylaw, followed by inserting the word titled after 2024-07. Followed by removing the word former and replacing it with the word existing, followed by inserting the words that falls within Fundy Albert after the word area. That's in the first paragraph. In the second paragraph, inserting the acronym SERSC after the words referred to the, followed by inserting the acronym PRAC, following the words Planning Review and Adjustment Committee, followed by inserting the words subsequently before the words a public hearing. Removing the third paragraph and replacing it with, whereas many comments were received concerning the rural plan, council is now considering changes to the proposed Fundy Albert Rural Plan in order to address the comments and concerns brought forward by members of the community during the public consultation process. Removing the 4th, 5th, and 6th paragraphs and adding a 4th paragraph as follows. Be it resolved that 1, that the council of Fundy Albert shall form an ad hoc committee comprised of elected members of council and constituents representing the 4 existing rural plan bylaw areas to consider comments and concerns brought forward during the public hearing process and subsequent correspondence received, and to recommend changes, if any, to the proposed Fundy Albert Rural Plan, provided the recommended changes respect the intent of the consolidation process, which is to minimize fundamental changes to the existing rural plans. And 2, that council review the committee's recommendations under the direction of Plan 360, make further adjustments to the proposed rural plan as it sees fit. And 3, in accordance with the provisions prescribed in the Community Planning Act, that council then refers the revised proposed rural plan to the SERSC PRAC for its written views. And then 4, following receipt of the PRAC's views, that a second public hearing be scheduled to hear any comments for or against the revised proposed rural plan. So we're clear on what the amendment is. So on the proposed amendment, all in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any. The motion's carried unanimously. So now the amended motion needs to be considered by council, which is whereas Fundy Albert is proposing to adopt a bylaw number 2024-07 titled Fundy Albert Rural Plan in order to consolidate the existing rural plans for the village of Alma, village of Riverside Albert, village of Hillsborough, and the Westmoreland Albert planning area that falls within Fundy Albert. And whereas the proposed rural plan was referred to the SERSC Planning Review and Adjustment Committee, brackets PRAC, and subsequently a public hearing was held on July 25th, 2024. And whereas many comments were received concerning the proposed rural plan, council is now considering changes to the proposed Fundy Albert Rural Plan in order to address the comments and concerns brought forward by members of the community during the public consultation process. Be it resolved that one, the Council of Fundy Albert shall form an ad hoc committee comprised of elected members of council and constituents representing the 4 existing rural plan bylaw areas to consider comments and concerns brought forward during the public hearing process and subsequent correspondence received, and to recommend changes, if any, to the proposed Albert Rural Plan, provided the recommended changes respect the intent and of the consolidation process, which is to minimize fundamental changes to the existing rural plans. And 2, that council review the committee's recommendations and under the direction of Plan 360, make further adjustments to the proposed rural plan as it sees fit. And 3, in accordance with the provisions prescribed in the Community Planning Act, the council then refers the revised proposed rural plan to the SERSC PRAC for its written views. And 4, following receipt of the PRAC's views, that a second public hearing be scheduled to hear any comments for or against the revised proposed rural plan. That is the amended motion. Are there any questions in relation to the amended motion? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's carried unanimously. So the question that Councillor Land asked is, now that council's approved a resolution to form an ad hoc committee, there is a requirement to appoint committees, and it is a council responsibility. And on the recommendation of the mayor, which I don't have any at the current time, is there anyone sitting at the table today that wishes to pronounce that they're willing to sit on that ad hoc committee? If not, we can delay it until the next committee of the whole meeting, I believe, is on October 15th, at which time is we can have a more in-depth discussion with all members of council present so that we can decide who's going to be on it and then appoint those individuals at the November regular meeting. Sound reasonable?
Yep.
All right. So we will move on then.
Thank you for your assistance in that.
Thank you.
Can I have a moment?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh,
Just so noted that Councillor Coates is excusing himself for a second. So under 9 bylaws, there are no bylaws to present this evening. Under 10, mayor and councillor statements. So we will start with Deputy Mayor Arrow. Do you have any comments or statements to provide?
no, thank you.
None? Councillor Ward Russell, anything to provide?
Just a couple things tonight. Just an update on the proposed lagoon in Lower Coverdale for the residents of Greensboro subdivision. Due to the pending election, the person public meeting will be postponed until after the election. After the election, a meeting will be set at that point. I would suggest that as council that we hold information session for us as council members before this public meeting, so we're advised of what's going on before that it goes to the public. So just keep the date of the election in mind, and then let's go from there.
Keep that on the radar.
Yep. The last thing on my report is with the continued growth in Ward 6, I've had the opportunity to talk to Chief True from the Town of Riverview Fire Department about the need for water access. He expressed much openness to this conversation and that he would like to meet with council to start that negotiation. I would ask the administration reach out to Chief True to plan a meeting that we could all meet with him. That's it.
Okay. Councillor Land.
I just have one thing. I have a question more than anything. I noticed on Pound Hill, they started that project. And at the very top of the pylons there used to be a manhole there. It's gone. Can we get Public Works to look into that? Maybe Linda, see what's going on there? Because
There's a manhole cover missing.
yeah, they covered it over. I looked today, it's gone. And that's the first one at the top of the hill. That takes a lot of the water before it starts down the other part of the hill to get to the second manhole. It's not there. So I'd ask you guys, Public Works, look into it, please, and thank you.
Yeah.
Just to see what the contractor's doing in that situation. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Coates, any comments or statements?
No, good tonight.
Good. Councillor Jonah.
Just one thing, before I left to come to the meeting, I had a call from a constituent. I don't know if Ian and Linda's aware, but back at the golf club road, you go back past the golf club, On the left-hand side, there was a big area that was made there for residents to be able to put brush or trees or anything that they cut down, just stick it back there. Right now it's completely jammed full. We used to bring in, some kind of a big equipment and move it back and push it back over the hill. And what's happening, according to this, gentleman that called me, is there's now along that road, there's 2x4s, there's wood, there's all kinds of stuff, finding new spots to be. So maybe you can check it out, talk with, the guys and find out exactly where it is, go back and take a peek.
Yeah, I mean, I walk around there on a regular basis, so I think you know where it is. Is that Gold Club Road or Nicholas Drive?
It's the extension of the old road. It's called the new road, I believe it's called.
That's what it's called,
It's
yeah.
called the new road going back on the Snowmobile trail towards the back of the golf course. I can show you.
Yeah.
Know the area very well.
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So as far as an update on the Golf Club Road culvert is concerned, there is now going to be a delay. We have not, I have reached out to the Englobe engineer in terms of the proposed delay because of the tendering process. The tendering process now required, well, not the tendering process. The tendering process is done. It's just we need the borrowing authority in place in order to proceed with the next phase of the project. And so there's a domino effect because of that. So that borrowing authority will not be in place, to my knowledge, before the 12th of November. So if that happens, as soon as we receive the borrowing authority, then we can proceed with the project. But there are issues, some potential issues. I don't see them personally as issues, because of the way that our seasons have been transpiring lately, is that heavy frost into the ground could make it a little more difficult. Having said that, the most important issue is the permits to allow the digging up of that stream. And Englobe is currently looking into any environmental concerns that might exist and any permit restrictions that might exist there. They're quite confident that we will be able to continue as planned. So we'll get more information as time goes on. So for now, we're kind of looking towards the middle of November before we get started. On the Anglophone East School District reciprocal agreement, so the CAO and I met virtually with a representative of the Anglophone East School District to get clarification on the contents of a draft reciprocal agreement that was provided to council. If you'll recall, the draft agreement on the appendix was focused on the Salisbury school. So we've asked that document to be updated so that we are able to provide a fresh draft to council. That had kind of fallen off the table, but we need to bring that back to council, and the plan is to bring that back to council at the committee of the whole meeting on the 15th. And we asked a whole series of questions of the Anglophone East School District personnel, just so we're clear on what it is that we would be expected to do under that reciprocal agreement. So just thought I would mention. It would include a commitment to maintain school properties in Hillsborough and Riverside Albert. There would be commitments to allow the use of the Riverside Albert Recreation Center and occasional use of the Hillsborough Arena. And there are further discussions that are going to need to happen in that respect. So, but the whole goal of that is to provide the schools after hours to the public so that they can use it for things like badminton, basketball. It's for the youth. And that's why they're promoting the use of those facilities. And I think it's a great idea, but we need to know the full scope of the responsibilities that we're taking on and that our Public Works Department are going to take on. So those are why we were asking questions. And last but not least, I'll be attending along with Councillors Jonah, Ward Russell, and Coates, the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick annual conference later this week. It appears as though there are going to be some very interesting topics to be discussed during the weekend, and typically there are new resolutions that are brought forward at the annual meeting on which occurs on Sunday before it closes sometime around noon or so. So we'll be attending that meeting over the weekend. That is it for that item number 10. Item number 11, notices of motions and resolutions. There is a motion related to the Fundy Albert credit card policy that's required. A council report form was circulated recommending providing the Director of Community Services a credit card with a limit of $1,000. A motion to amend the Fundy Albert credit card policy is required for that. So if I could have someone read that, if I could, please.
Whereas the Fundy Albert corporate credit card policy does not list a Director of Community Services under eligibility. And whereas the Director of Community Services has requested a credit card. And whereas the maximum credit limit with the bank for all credit cards is $25,000. Be it resolved that the Fundy Albert corporate credit card policy be amended to include the following under eligibility. General Government CAO, $1,500. General Government Treasurer, $10,000. Public Works Director of Operations, $7,500. Hillsborough Volunteer Fire Department Fire Chief, $2,000. Riverside Albert Volunteer Fire Department Fire Chief, $1,500. And Alma Volunteer Fire Department Fire Chief, $1,500. Be it resolved that a $1,000 credit card be added for the Director of Community Service and that the amended Fundy Albert credit card policy approval section be signed and dated by the current CAO/clerk and mayor.
So moved by Councillor Jonah, seconded by Councillor Land. Any discussion on the motion in relation to that resolution? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's carried unanimously. Item number 11B, which is a motion related to the land lease agreement with DTI. There are actually two motions here. One is to enter into a 2-year lease with Fundy Albert to use land, which is PID 01051630 as a laydown area from April 2nd, 2025 to April 1st of 2027 for the Graybrook construction project. And then the second is a sale of a parcel of land that will form part of the Graybrook project. It will really, for all intensive purposes, disappear. It's a narrow strip of land that runs along the highway. So a council report form was provided to council outlining the details of the requirement for both resolutions. A resolution is required for the lease of land. If I could get someone to read that, please.
Whereas Route 114 Hillsborough Road, Graybrook area grading and paving project requires a designated area for the storage and staging of construction materials and equipment. And whereas the parcel of land 23-101 identified at PID 01051630 is suitable for use as a construction laydown area. Be it resolved that council approves the lease agreement between Fundy Albert and the province of New Brunswick for the use of the land identified by Department of Transportation and Infrastructure as parcel 23-101 and identified at PID 01051630 as a construction laydown area, and that the lease agreement be set at $1,300 per period of 2 years, beginning April 2nd, 2025 and ending April 1st, 2027. And that the mayor and chief administrative officer be authorized to finalize and execute the lease agreement with Her Majesty the King in right of the province of New Brunswick as represented by the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure.
So moved by Councillor Land. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Coates. So
I'm sorry, Councillor Land said Her Majesty.
Yes.
Just His Majesty.
His Majesty.
Sorry.
Correct. Yeah. Any discussion on that motion? So this is really, and maybe our chief administrative officer can provide a little bit of context, is to allow that construction project to go forward so they have a place to store their materials during the project. And they're willing to pay us $1,300 for a 2-year lease on that parcel.
They presented us two options. The first option was $1, which is the standard, we're going to have an agreement here. My argument or my recommendation is the $1,300, which was the second option, because the municipality has put work already into that area with building up that lift station and some ongoing repairs to that road. So I figured out of the two deals, we should at least be taking the $1,300.
Okay. Any questions? If not, on the motion to enter into the lease agreement with DTI, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's carried unanimously. The next is a resolution required for the sale of the parcel of land. Would someone be willing to read that, please?
Whereas,
Council Ward Russell.
whereas Route 114 Hillsborough Road, Graybrook area grading and paving project requires acquisition of land for the purpose of constructing and maintaining the roadway, and whereas 438 meters square of land has been identified as parcel 23-4, 23-5, and 23-6 on NBDTI Plan 15-0011 is necessary for the successful completion of the project. Be it resolved that the council approves the land sale agreement between Fundy Albert and His Majesty the King and right of the province of New Brunswick as represented by the Minister of Transportation Infrastructure for the purpose of land on NBDTI Plan 1-5-0011. And that the purchase price be set at $5,955 with the terms and conditions as outlined in this agreement. And that the mayor and the chief administrative officer be authorized to finalize and execute the land sale agreement with His Majesty the King and the right of the province of New Brunswick as represented by the Minister of Transportation Infrastructure.
So moved by Councilor Ward Russell. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councilor Jonah. Any discussion on the motion? Perhaps the chief administrative officer would like to comment?
Nothing further to add on that one. That was the contract that was put in front of us for that amount.
So if I may, if there's a piece of land that runs parallel to the road that's there now, or such a small.
They are just the little strips on either side of the roadway.
Okay.
That would be, I guess, the,
That will form part of the new roadway. Yeah,
Thank you.
to show you. Yeah.
Do we know why there was no PID for that?
there was a map that was included in the council package. Is there nothing on there for it shows there's strips of areas on different PIDs. That's why wasn't specific.
Because the motion refers to parcels, right?
Right, on the DTI plan.
That's the
which, yes.
I'm in favor of the motion.
All right, ready for the question? All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? The motion's carried unanimously. The next is a motion related to the EMO mutual aid agreement. Following a council decision to participate in the emergency measures regional collaboration effort, a formal resolution is required to enter into a formal mutual aid agreement to formalize that agreement. If somebody would be willing to read that motion, please. Go ahead, Councillor Coates.
Be it resolved that the Fundy Albert Council authorize the village to enter into the emergency mutual aid between the town of Beauveage, village of Member Cook, rural community of Beausoleil, city of Moncton, town of Capelli, village of Nouvelle Arcade, town of Shabada, town of Riverview, city of Dieppe, village of Salisbury, village of Five Rivers, town of Shediac, village of Fundy Albert, rural community of Straight Shores, town of Grand Octouche, town of Trechbar, rural community of Maple Hills, and the community of Three Rivers, and that the mayor and chief administrative officer be authorized to execute all necessary documents and to fix the corporate seal throughout.
All right, there are some pretty different words because they're French words, so I'll
Yep.
just kind of reread the whole thing if you don't mind, Councillor,
Yeah,
just so that
maybe,
we're clear on that.
I think
That it,
probably.
the motion as read by Councillor Coates was be it resolved that the Fundy Albert Council authorize the village to enter into a mutual aid agreement between the town of Beaurivage, village of Memram Cook, rural community of Beausoleil, city of Moncton, town of Cap-Acadie, village of Nouvelle Arcadie, town of Champ-Doré, town of Riverview, city of Dieppe, village of Salisbury, village of Five Rivers, town of Shediac, village of Fundy Albert, rural community of Straight Shores, town of Grand Boctouche, town of Tantramar, rural community of Maple Hills, and the community of Three Rivers, and that the mayor and the chief administrative officer be authorized to execute all necessary documents and to affix the corporate seal thereto. I need a seconder on that motion. Seconded by Councillor Land. Any discussion on the motion? So this is to formally enter into the mutual aid agreement with the other communities in the Southeast region. Yes, Deputy
The
Mayor.
only thing I would add for those listening and such is the mutual aid agreement is included in our council report form, the one where it's 12 pages long. There's many protections in there, I would say, for the community. It's as a member of our EMO committee, I think this is the kind of thing that we were hoping for, really, and I'm very supportive of this. Presumably, this will be a public document once executed, and so any member of the community who is interested to see the terms and conditions that are contained in this 12-page agreement, they would be free to do so. But it's good stuff.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I'll add that it is part of our regional emergency planning process. It's a critical piece of it. It would actually strengthen our ability to provide emergency measures services. And it also is an agreement that covers, it spans both RSD 6 and 7. So it's not just RSC 7, because there are communities in there, Chandoré and Beausoleil, those are part of RSC 6. So it's a multi-regional approach to mutual aid, and we stand to benefit like any other community does quite significantly. So any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor of the motion as presented signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's carried unanimously. We now get to item number 12, which is public comments and statements. This is an opportunity for members of the public to make comments or statements if they wish to do so. You can just stand up and if you have anything to say, otherwise we'll move on to our next item of business. Yes, Mrs. McCallum.
Questions?
Yes, sometimes. Sure.
On any of the water projects through the entity.
That would be at the next committee of the whole meeting.
There'll be a fulsome update at that time. Any other comments or statements? If not, we will move on to the next item of business, which is a closed session under section 68(1)D of the Local Governance Act, which is the proposed or pending acquisition of land. I'll need a motion to move into closed session. Moved by Councillor Ward Russell, seconded by Councillor Jonah. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Thank you very much for attending, folks, and
Safe drive.
have a safe drive home.